at the same time. And so that's where all of a sudden Leo didn't motion to me. I thought, what the heck? You know, it took quite a while. All of a sudden I saw him go like this. So I went up to him, and there was a Japanese guy laying down there with his throat cut. And so Leo didn't want to shoot him because he'd tell the Japs were coming, you know. So anyway, then I motioned the other guys, and they couldn't see the dead Jap until they got to the curb. Everybody come out and go like this, you know, when we got there. So we got in the brush on the other side, under the trees, and we're kidding him, calling him Leo the Ripper, you know. Yeah, anyway, when we were sitting there, I looked down, and I seen some ferns, busted ferns, and the white milk was running out of the stem of them, you know. I thought, Jesus, something just went through here to break those ferns. So I got off my butt and looked up like that, and I saw a Japanese head going through the brush like this. The guy's squatting down. I picked my M1 and I went, blam, like that. And the guys all hit the ground. This is what it is. I said, I just shot a Jap. He's running through there. So they sprint, and what they call it, and they come around, they flanked them. They come in like this, and it was just my platoon. And this lieutenant come back to me. He says, who fired that shot? I said, I did. He says, you got two of them right through the back of the head. One was running in front of the other one, and I, not running, but squatted down, and I didn't see him. And I got both of them. And anyway, that in turn, I think, told the Japs we were coming. So then we walked up the trail, and Leo was in front of me, and the scouts, we go out about 20 feet or more in front of the rest of the guys. And Leo was in front of me, and all of a sudden he stopped and go like this with his Thompson. He had Thompson and M1. And I came up to him, and here was a Jap laying alongside the trail going, Banzai Japan, Banzai Japan. They had doped him and put him there. We found this dope, it's a little pink pill that they took. And so Leo says, shut him up, Gueter, shut him up. So I knifed him and cut him up so he couldn't holler. Just as I did that, this Leo Pelzar come up behind me and grabbed me by the back of the neck and pulled me back, and he says, shoot him. And they went boom, 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 and killed him. The guy finished him, you know. He was dead when I stuck him. And we didn't go for another 40 feet, and Leo was in front of me, and all of a sudden the bullets opened up. They ambushed us. Leo stood there with his Thompson shooting in there, and I seen the flesh flying out of his neck, and down he went. And I dove behind a tree, and that's the time I saw the two of them come up to me, and I got both of those guys there.
Had you ever heard of something like that? The Japanese doping up one of their soldiers, or?
Yeah, they did. And I never saw it before, but some of my other buddies told me that they found them, and then they found these pills in them, and one of the crazy guys took one to see what it was.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a pink pill.
You described a situation where I think you said you'd been shot twice. Was once in the neck you'd talked about?
Yeah, I got just a nick in the neck.
And what was the second time?
I got the back of my heel knocked off. Yeah, and I could still walk, but it took, and I didn't know it until I was laying behind this tree and about 4 or 5 dead guys around me, and all of a sudden my parachute boot felt like I stepped in a mud puddle or something, you know, water or something. I looked down and my heel was gone. The rubber heel on my boot was gone, and the back was there. And that scared me, and then I stood up because they were shooting around there. I stood up behind a tree, and I could walk on my toe. And I got out of there all right. Then after I got out, they took me to the hospital, to like MASH hospital. And this is on Noonfor Island. And they took some skin off my leg up here and sewed it down there. And but the trouble is, the skin on my knee, or my leg right here, isn't the same skin you have on your elbow or your heel or your knee. And about 2 years after that, when the war was over, when I bought a new pair of shoes, I had to have them the left one stretch, because I'd get a blister on that heel, and finally it got all right, you know. But then I didn't have a parachute boot. You know, my left shoe was gone, and all we had, because we were the only paratroops there, and they didn't have our equipment. I had a GI shoe is what I had. And so Jesse Fry was our medic. So I got a piece of string about just exactly the same size as my boot was. And I give it to Jesse. I says, hey, you run across a dead guy on his left shoe, get me the boot this size. He brought me a boot. It was in better shape than the one I had. Then from there, we went up and landed in the Philippines 15 days after initial landing. And we went and patrolled a little bit up in Leyte. I remember my buddy and I, Eker, we walked down to the big airstrip there in Leyte, and MacArthur's airplane was there. And there was guys around there kind of guarding, and the plane was just sitting there. And so they're all in there eating. So I said, let's go take a look at MacArthur's airplane. So we climbed up and went in there and took a look around. It was like a living room. And all of a sudden in comes three guys, and they grabbed us, and one of us kicked us right in the butt. Get out of here, you know. And run us down, you know. But anyway, we got a kick out of it. And we went swimming there. I remember when the typhoons came up when we were living there, we were in tents right on the beach. And I think a couple of destroyers rolled over in that big typhoon. And anyway, our tents were wrapped around the coconut palms. Wind was blowing so bad. And I didn't have my helmet on. I was behind a coconut palm, and the coconuts were flying through the air like bowling balls. I wish I had my helmet, you know. Then all of a sudden the ocean started getting higher and higher and higher. And then we went, if that darn water comes in here, I don't know if we can run because the coconut palms will get us, you know. But finally it went down, and we got out of there all right. From there, then we boarded old, kind of green destroyers, and we went and landed by barge on Mindoro. And we went in by barge there. And another thing happened to me there. When I was in the hospital one time with malaria, this Marine was next to me, and he had a broken leg. He told me, he says, did you ever go in by barge? And I says, no. I said, I'm in a paratroops, we jumped. He says, well, if you go in by barge, they have a wet beach and a dry beach. He said, a dry beach is a deep beach because the landing barge can get in, and when the ramp goes down, you're on the sand. But a wet beach is a shallow beach, and the barge has hit the bottom. And when the ramp goes down, you're in the water, and you've got to wade ashore. He says, the best thing to do, just before you get to the beach, get on a port side and go over the side just before they drop the ramp, because the Japanese run a machine gun as soon as that ramp goes down, or a 5-inch gun into that. So we're going into the Mindoro, and our rockets are going over the top of them, you know. Some are short. We were hoping one to land in our landing bars, you know. And so I got thinking what this Marine told me. So we got close in this, and down went the ramp, and Richie went over the side. I got 4 hand grenades, a full canteen, a couple of K rations, my Thompson machine gun, and I don't know how many rounds of ammunition. I went right to the bottom. It was a dry beach, a deep beach. I went down about 8 feet of water, and I walked ashore underneath. Thank God in those days I got to hold my breath for 3 minutes underwater. I walked ashore, and the Japs had run to the mountains, so there was no combat there. And so my buddy said, what the heck happened to you? You dummy, you know. But you know, it could have been the other way around, you know. I don't know. I thought he'd give me some good advice. But we didn't run across too much there. One thing I did see on Mindoro was, I wish I had in those days a video camera, the dogfights. I saw 5 airplanes falling out of the air at one time. There was 3 Zeros, P-38 and a P-40. The Australians flew the P-40s. And we used to hide behind a tree when they were having dogfights because machine gun bullets were hitting the ground and everything else. But it was quite a time. But landing, we didn't have much problem at all. Then in B Company, we were the point company, we after patrolling around there, we got on a landing barge, and it took us about 50 miles up the coast, and we landed at night around 1 o'clock in the morning, and went to shore, and we walked all night long, and there was 2 Filipino guys. I was a point man, the first man, and these Filipinos, after about an hour, I found out they couldn't hardly speak English. I'd say, hey, they call us Joe, and we call them Joe. Hey, Joe, how much further? Oh, 8 kilometers, Joe, 8 kilometers. He told me 8 kilometers for the next 2 hours, you know. We hiked all night long until daylight, and we came into this village, Puan, I think, Puan village in Mindoro, and there was a tower, not a tower, it was a kind of bamboo tower made about, maybe 20 feet above the nipa shacks, and there was a Japanese up there, and we sneaked in, and I was the first guy. I sneaked along, and they had a fence, bamboo fence about 3 foot high. I was on my hands and knees and sneaked along that fence till I got in. I remember I sneaked along and I kept down because I didn't want the guy on the tower to see me. And then I would turn around and motion my friends, and they'd come in behind me like that. And I remember I got to the corner of this fence, and I peeked around the fence, and I was about a foot from a great big sow pig that had 2 little ones, and it went like this. I went to jump, my hands and knees, I went to jump straight in the air for a minute, and I stayed right there, but I was afraid they'd give me away, but the pig ran off, you know. And then finally, all the guys moved in, and the first things we do, the mortar guys shoot first. They get the mortar rounds in the air, and when the first one goes off, then we shoot. I think everybody shot that guy on the tower up there. And so we wiped the whole village out there. But they got us, I think there was, on that one, I think they got 14 dead and 21 of us wounded on that. And then the PT boats came in around 3 o'clock. We wiped them out about 2 o'clock. The PT boats come in around 3 and picked up the dead and wounded. And the Filipinos cooked us. They had corn there, which we were surprised. That village didn't have rice. It had corn and wild pigs. And they cooked us that, and they were real happy, you know, because those are real bad Japanese.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was the relationship like with the Filipinos?
Real good, yeah. Oh, they really liked us, yeah, because we're getting rid of the Japanese.
So they would help and that kind of thing.
Yeah, they were, and they had 2 Filipino women bare their breasts and show us where the Japanese cut their breast off. And one guy showed us where they cut the 6-year-old little kid's left hand off because his father was kind of a big man around there, and he wouldn't tell him where we call them flyboys, the Air Force. Guy gets shot down and he'd bail out. Well, the Filipinos fed him because they didn't have any food. Well, the Japanese seen him coming down, and they went to the Filipinos, say, where is so-and-so? Oh, we don't know, we don't know. Well, if you don't tell us, I cut your arm off. That's where it was.
What was your feeling about the Japanese soldiers? At the time, what did you...
Get as many as we can. When I was 10 years old, my grandfather bought me a .22, and I had a 20-gauge shotgun when I was 12. Amen. Today, doing kids like that, and I used to bring home so many ducks where Redwood High School is now in Larkspur. My mother used to tell me, quit bringing them home. And then all of a sudden I found out I could sell them at the butcher shop for 50 cents a piece, all picked and clean and ready to sell. And he'd sell them for 75 cents a dollar, something like that.
So you had the background, the experience with guns at a young age.
And we had contests, you know, when we were in Port Moresby at the rifle ranges, and we put $5 in a pot, and the guy got the highest. I was the best shot in my whole company. Yeah.
Were there prisoners taken?
We never took prisoners, and it was suicide to take them. Here's what happened, and this is something we never read about. This is something that truly happened. You take a prisoner, like 1 or 2 Japanese, and there'd be 8 or 9 of us guys, or a bunch of guys there, standing with our guns on our shoulder and everything. They wouldn't have any guns because we took it away from them. When some guy turned his back, he'd run up and grab the guy's gun off his shoulder and keep shooting us until we shot him. And it only happened once or twice. It happened a lot of times to guys, especially new guys. We had replacements all the time because guys are getting shot up. And
what would you tell replacements? Could you look at a replacement and tell, this is a guy who's got a chance of surviving, or could you tell this is a guy who's not going to make it?
no, but we used to sit them down and tell them how to act in combat. It was never in the books.
What would you tell them?
Oh, one thing, when we used to say usual order, that means the first platoon shoots to the right, the second platoon shoots to the middle, and the third platoon shoots to the left. Then you're not all shooting at the same guy. And you shoot the furthest guy away first for two reasons. One reason, he's not getting too far away, and the next reason is that the Japanese are running behind him, see him falling, and they're going to fall down. They're going to hit the ground. As soon as they hit the ground, then you can get them. Yeah, that's where it is. The most we ever got was on, let's see, Negro's Island, just before the war was over. My platoon was only 30 guys in the platoon, but we killed over 85 of them within 20 minutes, and not one of us got hit.
Just because you knew, everybody knew what to do at that point.
And they were on a trail going between, on this, just below us, going across this open field. And the trees were all around it, and it wasn't too big, maybe a little bit bigger than a football field, but it had high ferns, so you couldn't run either side. You had to stay in that trail. And we just found them by accident. And so this Hotkovitz, this guy hollered as usual. And he was so good with that mortar, that 60 millimeter mortar, you could put one in your back pocket. And they just dropped the mortar shells right like that down them. And they had pigs and chickens that they stole from the Filipinos. And you hear the pigs squealing and the chickens hollering. And when we got down there to them, the Filipinos were there before we got there. They were taking the pigs and the chickens, and they even took their shoes off them. And we were happy that they did, because he said, him still alive, him still alive. So you shoot him. And here's what happened. He could be laying there with a hand grenade underneath him. And when you get there, then they throw the hand grenade at you. Or laying there with a pistol and shoot you. And that happened too. We never read about it. That happened to us.
Did you ever run short of supplies, ammunition, where it was really starting to get critical?
Oh yeah, on Mindoro Island. We were my platoon, 30 of us, was patrolling up in the mountains up there, and like going up halfway Mount Tamalpais. And we were going we had enough food for about 3 days. And we had K rations then. And before it would just be C rations. Then one time we used to have Aussie rations, but this was K rations. And we were up there patrolling, and nothing too much. The Japs were hiding from us, and there was a village up there, a Filipino village, way up in the mountains. And all of a sudden, one of the Filipinos called, Japanese men come, Japanese men come. I says, where? Down there. And we looked down there. Here's about 200 of them just below us on the trail that we came up. Well, that was the only way down, to get down to the lowlands. So here we were stuck up there with a thing. Now usually all we do is just radio, and they drop us supplies or whatever we need. But if we did that, the Japanese would see those parachutes coming down and come up after us. Or we radio the artillery and have the artillery blow the heck out of them from down in the lowlands, and that would chase them up the hill, and we didn't want them up the hill. So we lived with the Filipinos, and we were running out of food, so we ate their food. I ate a hind leg of a monkey one time, and corn. They had corn in the cob up there. We couldn't believe it, growing on the side of those mountains. And I told myself, oh, this rabbit leg tastes good. This rabbit leg tastes good. But if you were as hungry as we were, you'd ate it too, you know. But they ate monkeys up there. And the only thing is, you don't want to look at it when they skin them, because they look like a newborn baby, you know. They're about the size. They're only about this big, you know. Little monkeys.
Where did it go from there then?
Oh, from Mindoro, from there we went by barge back to I forgot the little name of the town, San Jose or something like that, in Mindoro. And we were there for, I don't know how long. Then from there we flew out. Meanwhile, when we took Mindoro, we first landed, the Army Corps of Engineers were right behind us. And there was an airstrip, a Japanese airstrip there. And they laid down those metal things that hooked together and made an airstrip. And the Corsairs, Marine Corsairs, flew in. Well, then we had a talk there. MacArthur flew in, and he gave us a talk about Corregidor, and he said to us, "Men, we got them up against the wall. These Japanese are the ones that ran the Bataan Death March, and they're hiding out on the Corregidor, and we're going to get them." And he says, "And in conclusion, we don't have facilities for prisoners, let alone food to feed them. Dismiss."
Well, they just gave you the big announcement. You're going to Corregidor. Were you going to jump in, or were?
Yeah, we jumped. Yeah, that was a son of a gun. That's what.
What happened?
Oh, a lot of us got killed on Corregidor. I think they got 600 and some of us. We got 8,000 of them. When we landed there, I was about the 250th guy to hit it. And I dove in a bomb crater. The bullets were flying all over the place. And my friend Cisco, he made it through the war. He shot twice, but he made it. And he was coming down. I hollered, over here, and he ran over, dove in the hole too. And so he got his parachute off. That was the worst thing, trying to get your parachute off. And we all packed 45s because your rifle is underneath the harness of your parachute. If you hit the ground, they come running at you, you know. So we could pull a 45 out and shoot them. And he was down there and he got his thing off, and some buddies of ours were still coming down in the parachute. So he got his arm up, over here, and he got a bullet right through his arm. And never hit his bone though. And he's on, ha ha ha, I'm going home. I said, you crazy nut, get your head down, you're not going any place. It wasn't bad though, I patched him up, but that's where it was. Then there was 3 of us behind this rock, and it was hot, and we were just laying down. All of a sudden, one of my buddies said, Gueter, look out behind you, and there was a big bank there, and we were checking out the caves. And I turned around, here comes a Jap major with a samurai sword like a baseball bat running right at. And I flipped around and I emptied a whole clip into him. And he dropped about 20 feet from me. And this one guy says, geez, you're white as a sheet. I says, what the hell you tell me? Look out behind me. Why don't you shoot him when you see them coming, you know? and so my other friends give this guy hell for not shooting him, you know, anyway.
And you think, why didn't the guy have a rifle? I mean, the Japanese soldier.
I don't know. No, he was a major. And we had a pot, used to put $5 in, and the guy got the highest ranking officer, but he had to have witnesses, won the pot. Well, I took my knife out and cut his insignias off his collar, a major. And when it was over, some guy got a colonel, that's why I didn't win. Then one time, you go along and you don't stand in front of a cave, that's suicide. And the caves were about, they're short, maybe 20 feet deep or 30 feet deep and only about 5 foot high. And that's where they hid because of the bombs and everything, when they were getting bombed in Corregidor. And you go along and you up and lean against the bank, and you could smell them in there sometimes, and sometimes you could even hear them. And in that, we had phosphorus grenades. We had 2 fragmentations and 2 phosphorus. You throw a phosphorus grenade in there, and boy, he's going to come out of there because it eats up all the oxygen in there, or flips this hot stuff around and burns them. And there's one cave I came to, and I was sniffing. I thought, geez, I smell bourbon. It smells like booze in there. So I went and got a couple of my buddies, and they come up. This one big Polish guy, Hodkiewicz, and smelled. He says, "Oh, geez, that smells like what? There's booze in there. Don't throw a grenade in there because it'll break the bottles or something, you know." So what happened was, we went and found a guy with a flamethrower. We had flamethrowers, and he stood there with a flamethrower. You don't stand in front of cave with a flamethrower, because it builds up pressure and then blows it out at one time. And he was standing there with his flamethrower, and boy, nobody could live in that cave with that flamethrower. And all of a sudden it blew out. When it blew out, they knew we had it. And I didn't go in there. Another guy went in there first. We found 25 cases of Johnny Walkers in there, and some were broken, because when they bombed the island, it shook it, and some of the bottles broke in there, you know. Some of those crazy guys drank it and got drunk and were killed that night. 5 of them were killed that night. Next day they said to me, you know, Gueter, if you didn't find that booze, they wouldn't have got killed. Like, it was my fault. Yeah, they got in the guys after that. They said, if you want to find girls, or Japanese girls or booze, follow Gueter, you know. Yeah, the guys, we had some tough times, but I had one good time, you know.
Was it mainly clearing out those caves on Corregidor that you were involved in, or were there other parts of the island you had to work through?
No, we went the whole island. Yeah. And then Malenta Tunnel, they, as soon as we got everything settled there, then the Corps of Engineers come behind us, the combat engineers, and when we finally quieted everything down, we got almost 8,000 over there, 7,000 over there, no prisoners. Some dove in the water and swam out, and the Navy got them. You know, and they brought bulldozers aboard on the island, and they bulldozed dirt up in front of the Manila Tunnel and sealed it off. And sealed off all the air vents out of the tunnel, and they left it for 3 months. Well, we weren't there when it happened. We heard that they went in, and it was a mess. All kinds of dead bodies inside the thing there.
On Corregidor, how, what are the living conditions like? I mean, are you actually able to sleep in tents, or are you just sleeping on the ground?
Oh, no, we slept on the ground, yeah. And we had what they call ponchos. They could snap together and they made little small tents. And it had a hole in the middle of it with a drawstring, and you could put it over your head. It was like a raincoat. So we could use them 2 ways. When we were back in New Guinea, they brought around us hammocks, combat hammocks. They had mosquito nets all over the top of them. I got pictures of my album there. And we had those they lasted about 3 months and got rid of them, because the Japanese would sneak up and they'd whack you right in half with a sword, and you're still in the, you're inside that tent.
This was an explosion?
Yeah, the Japanese were in a tunnel and they had exploded ammunition from the big, they had 16-inch shells, 16-inch guns on that island, and they blew it up with themselves in it too, committing hara-kiri. And C Company was camped right on top, not camped, but bivouac on top of them for the night, and it blew the heck out of C Company. And after we quieted things down, and they brought the tanks onto the island, and I saw this tank go up in the air, about 10 feet in the air, and flip over when it went off, and the rocks are flying all over the place here, but it was pretty far away from me, you know. We ran over there, and there was dead guys all over the place here. And the medics all the medics went over there, took care of the C Company what they could. Then from Corregidor went back to Mindoro, and from Mindoro we took off an airplane with the parachutes to go to Negros, and we were supposed to jump at Bacolod. And when we were flying there, they radioed and said that the guerrillas chased the Japanese up in the mountains, and we didn't have to jump, we could land. So we landed there and then fought up in the mountains there. We were on a patrol one time, and we had a new replacement lieutenant out, and where the heck was that? Anyway, this was, I think, was on Negros Island. We were patrol, and so this lieutenant says, okay, we only had enough food for 1K ration, you know, one day, and he's okay, we're gonna head back to bivouac area. And I says, hey, Lieutenant, I always had a good sense of direction. And I said, Lieutenant, that's not the way we go. We go back through that valley over there. He says, I'm in command here. He says, Corporal, he says, this is the way we're going. And I said, that's wrong. So there's 30 of us. So 5 went with him, and the rest of the guys went with me. And he says, you're going to get it when we get back to camp. You're going to be under arrest of quarters. Well, we took off, and they took off. They got back at 12 o'clock noon the next day. They were lost. They finally made it back. Meanwhile, when we got back, I told the captain or company commander what had happened.